Hey friends, welcome to the Book of Joe, my variety channel. Today it's time for another episode of Joe Daddy. And on today's episode, bug's flying. Whoa, big bug. Ah, it attacked me. Oh, it's just one of those. Like, what is that thing? It's just one of those flying mosquitoes that are not mosquitoes, they're mosquito hawks. Anyway, Hey friends, welcome to the Book of Joe, my variety channel, and today it's time for a new episode of Joe Daddy. We're going to be talking about the Baby Brezza. Specifically, I'm going to give you guys my review, but first, I want to show you how to test your Baby Brezza to ensure that you're getting enough formula for your settings and for the device and for your bottles. If you've read any of the reviews on the Baby Brezza, the biggest review I've heard and I've come across is that it's that we don't get enough formula for the water. So I wanted to test it. And I'll show you guys, I ran 10 tests and I want to show that. But first I'm going to show you how to test it. And then I will give you my review. So why don't we head into the kitchen and I'll show you how to test the Baby Brezza. All right, everybody. So I've got everything I need here to test the Baby Brezza. And that's going to be the first thing we need to do. So I've got to put all of the pieces back together. I've given it a nice good cleaning. Again, with the Baby Brezza, one of the things that is really important is that you go online, you look at the manufacturer details, and you identify, based on the brand of formula, what setting you should have one of this little wheel at. I know that this formula uses a 5. Now, this is something I'll talk about later when I give you my actual review of the product. I think that's frustrating that it's not just based on Similac. It's actually Similac Pro Advanced is different than just Similac Advanced, which is different from some of the other Similac products. So just make sure you double check the manufacturer specifications because that's how this works. So I'm going to set this little wheel to 5 and then I'm going to put this all back together inside my little tub here, put the formula in, fill it up with water, and we're going to begin testing. Now what you'll also need to test the process is I recommend some saran wrap or a plastic baggie. And what we're going to do is we're going to cut a small baggie, and this is the process where the water goes, you know, in through here, down out here, and in here is where the formula goes. So what we want to do is we want to make sure that we capture the formula before it gets to the water so that we can weigh it on our scale. And that's how we're going to test whether or not we are getting the right amount of formula when we're hitting start every time. So I'm going to go ahead and put this together. And let's get this piece. We'll save this here for the last. But first, I got to put this thing back together. So this came with the device. This is the standard manufacturing. It shows you the order everything is supposed to go. Even though I've set this up 2 or 3 times and I've done this test 2 or 3 times, I always like to reference this because in order for it to be accurate, we need to make sure everything is set up appropriately. So that is first things first. We're going to do that. So I've got my wheel set to 5. That goes in first. And you got to make sure, if you've cleaned it, that this is dry, because wetness will mess up the formula. So making sure everything's nice and dry. The wheel goes in first. Then this little piece, this is the actual scoop. And this is, to me, and when we get to the results, I think is where the problem is. But we're going to throw this in here. There's a little tab that this goes under. It has to be under that tab. Then we have our little turner guy that goes on top of that. And we have everything now for the formula. And then this guy goes forward. Boom. Now and this is not under the tab, so this is already off. Boom. Okay. And boom. Now that is the key for this to work appropriately. So make sure you're following the directions to the T when you're setting this thing up. Now we need to get the catch ready. Now the catch is the piece that goes, under here. So what we want to make sure is that we put a piece of plastic over this. You need to build a little pocket because that's going to go in here and that's going to capture our formula. So let me go ahead and take some of this saran wrap. All right, so what I got here is I've actually got some sticky saran wrap, and I'm going to make a piece about this big enough. Oh, this stuff is always a pain in the butt. Big enough. This is too big, obviously. I'm going to cut this in half. Big enough, or rather, I'm going to use the super scientific method of ripping it in half. big enough that it can go in here and create a catch. Now, if you use the sticky saran wrap, sticky side down. Otherwise, all the formula sticks to the saran wrap and then it has a hard time coming out. Now, once you get it in here, you might want to clean it up if you've got a lot of extra edges like I do here. Because we're trying to maybe get scissors that actually work. Because this also has to be able to go back in the machine here without jamming it up and messing up sensors and things like that. So you got to be a little bit careful. And now I've got, you know, about a knuckles deep catch. If you need more, again, if you're doing more like a higher formula test, you might want to make a little deeper pocket. For what I'm doing, I believe this should be just fine. All right, and once that's ready, that guy just goes right in here. Boom, the light over here should go off and you should be set to go. Now I'm gonna add water so we can test it. Now, recommend room temperature water because if you go too hot, then you have to wait it cool. If you go too cold, you have to wait for it to warm up. Like right now, it's gonna have to warm up and that's gonna take a minute. While that warms up, I'm gonna clear this out and I'm gonna get ready to begin formula testing. And actually what I can do is I'm gonna go ahead and put some formula in. Now, again, this will become in my review. There's a minimum line and a maximum line, but what the product doesn't tell you is that if it's too low, it won't tell you don't have enough formula in. And that is also part of one of the problems I have with the product, with the Baby Brezza that we'll talk about. But go ahead, I'm gonna go ahead and pour some of the formula in and get this thing ready. And then when we return, this will be warmed up. So on the label of your formula, you should have a little mixing guide. This says that 1 scoop equals 8.2 grams. Now I've tested a regular scoop a couple times where I just did one on my own here. 1 scoop, and I'm getting about 9 grams. So I don't know how this is kind of a crappy scale, but we're looking for consistency, and so that's what I'm trying to figure out is how consistent is this guy at dispensing formula. So we're looking at about 9 G's every time I do a hand scoop. So that's where I want to see when I hit go on this, is be between 8 and 9 every single time. Now, we're going to go ahead and let the water continue to warm up, and then we'll get started here as soon as it's ready. Additionally, you're going to want a bottle. Now, I pulled out my Dr. Brown's bottle that goes all the way to 8 ounces. Now, I'm really focused on the 2 and 4 ounce test because that's where my baby is. She's at the 2 to 4 ounce. That's most people when they're buying the Baby Brezza, they're buying it for those early days of pregnancy or of the baby's life when you're getting up every 3 hours to feed baby and you want to be able to use the product as designed where you put your bottle underneath, you hit go, and out comes the perfect formula every time. So that's what we're looking for. I'm going to go ahead and we're just still waiting for this temp to come up. Okay. We've got everything ready, but again, I'm just going to do a control scoop. Now, I've already done this on every control scoop. I've pretty much gotten the same results. And that's 9 grams, which I just got again. So 9 G's is what I expect to get out of the Brezza if it is truly doing 1 full scoop. So let's go ahead and hit it. Now, when I hit start, we should see water coming out. The little motors are going to turn. It's going to scoop out the formula, drop it in to the scoop, not to the water. It's anticipation. So it looks good. Again, we're going to double check the water. So that's why you put the bottle there. So again, 2 ounces. So the water is good. And now when I put this here, we should see 9. And I got 7. So hand scooping, I'm getting 9 grams. Through the Brezza, I'm getting 7 grams. So that's, and I'm recording this because I'm going to do this test multiple times to see if there's a difference. And there is a little left in here, but not 2 grams worth. Not hardly enough that I would think would cause that big of a discrepancy. But we're going to go ahead and run this test a bunch more times. And then when I come to editing and I get back in the studio, I'll give you my review and the results. But in the meantime, let's run this test a bunch of times. So we're done testing the Baby Brezza, and now it's time for me to give you my review. So first off, I love the concept of the Baby Brezza. The idea of a perfect bottle at 3 in the morning by pressing one button is delightful. It sounds so fantastic, so easy. You can put the bottle there, you press a button, and boom, you get the perfect amount of formula and water at the right temperature. Sounds divine. However, let me show you the results of my test right here. As you can see, the biggest problem with the Baby Brezza is consistency. Now, every time I did a manual scoop where I scooped a manual scoop with the scooper and put it on the scale, I was getting 9 grams. Now, my scale doesn't do to the 10th, so it could be 9.0, 9.1, but it was 9 grams. The Baby Brezza was doing 3 grams to 7 grams. Now, at first I had to question my results. I can understand if every one of my results was 7 grams and my hopper wasn't big enough to collect enough of the formula. But therein lies the problem. There is no checks and balances on whether or not you're getting the right amount of formula. If there's a small clog or if the formula is too airy, you're not going to get enough. And when you look at the results, time over time, when you have from 7 grams to 3 grams, that is just inconsistent. And with everything a new parent has to worry about, from, is my baby eating enough? Is it changing the diaper enough? Is it sleeping enough? Is the baby breathing? The baby just sneezed. Is it alive? I mean, there's so many things you have to worry about. The last thing I need to worry about is whether or not this piece of technology is providing enough formula for my baby. And that is a problem. And the fact that when I ran the test, it was inconsistent results. That is why I cannot give the Baby Brezza the Joe Daddy seal of approval. What I will say, though, my wife and I do still use the Brezza, but it's just to dispense water, because that, it does great. It never missed the right amount of water. It's the right temperature every time, and I love it. So it's an expensive device just to dispense water, but if it's just inconsistent, and it has to do with the mechanism and the way that it scoops formula. It doesn't have a scale. It has no way. In fact, if you were, like right now, I have the Baby Brezza's hopper with the formula hopper empty. And it doesn't say anything. It doesn't go, oh, there's too little formula in here to run. And I think that's the problem, is that it just can't get a consistent scoop with such an inconsistent material such as formula. So look, if you guys have a Baby Brezza and you're using it and it's working for you, fantastic. But I highly recommend you take a few minutes and run the test that I just did, just to see if you're getting the right amount of formula. Because if you're not, and you're giving your brand new baby a lot of water, you can get water toxicity, and you can make your baby very sick. Plus, the weight gain won't be there. Luckily for my wife and I, we found out early on. I had read reviews. I had looked into how to test it. I tested it, and I found the same results even before I ran the test on camera. It was so inconsistent. There was time where I was getting a half a scoop of formula for 2 ounces of water instead of a full scoop, and that's just not acceptable. So if you are using the Baby Brezza, test the Baby Brezza. To be fair, it does a great job dispensing water, and in 3 in the morning, that is nice, but it's probably just as easy to take and pre-make the bottles, meaning just put the formula in the bottom of the bottle and taking a bottle of water and pouring it in. Most babies don't need hot formula or warm formula. Just room temperature formula would be just fine. If a baby doesn't know that if they've never had warm formula, they're not going to be disappointed with cold formula, and it's not going to have any less nutritional value, and it's not going to make them any less satisfied from eating. So you have to use your thoughts on this one. I can't give the Baby Brezza a seal of approval. If you guys are still watching, thank you so much for taking the time. Hit that subscribe button if you want to see more of this kind of stuff. I plan to do a lot more reviews on this segment of Joe Daddy around different baby products. I think one of the next ones I might do is the Owlet. But I do have plans on doing some more. So if you like what you're seeing, hit the subscribe button. Throw up those thumbs if you like today's video. And you tell me below what you guys found with your Baby Brezza. Again, I'm sorry, Baby Brezza, but I cannot give you the seal of approval. So until next time, folks, have a great day. Cheers. Clink.